Vanakkam. Today we are going to see chapter 4 and chapter 5 of Peer Review Guidelines 2022. This Peer Review Guidelines 2022 is definitely going to be the very important area wherein every practice unit has to get themselves under the peer review. We will start the session, that is chapter 4. Chapter 4 is with reference to administration of the secretariat. So what are the procedures that everyone has to follow? And this is dealt in class 23 of the secretariat. The council, that is ICI council, appoints peer review board secretary and secretariat in order to assist the board and as well as to discharge the board's function. So PRB secretary, peer review board secretary and secretariat, they have to help the board to discharge its functions. Then the terms and conditions of confidentiality applicable to the board members as well as the peer reviewers are also applicable to all persons working in secretariat. That is, what are the terms and conditions applicable for the board members as well as peer reviewers with reference to confidentiality? It also applies to all persons working in the secretariat because they have to maintain the secrecy. And training arrangements for personnel of the secretariat has to be given from time to time because to update the knowledge, the training, the personnel people of secretariat, they have to be given the training. And now we are going to see the functions of peer review board and the secretariat. So here, the peer review board secretary is the custodian of all the records of the board, and he has to perform his duties and functions under the general superintendence and control of the chairman of the board. Then, based on general or special order of the chairman or vice chairman or any member of the board, secretary, including peer review board secretary, they have to perform the duties and they have got the following powers. They have, that is peer review board secretary, he has got the power to receive the application and questionnaire from the practice unit, peer review reports, and rectified application questionnaire from the practice unit, then rectified peer review reports and any other miscellaneous applications, and make an entry of the same into the respective receipt register. Because whatever they receive, they have to make the entry in the register. For that, their secretariat has to maintain a receipt register to endorse on all such application of the date of receipt for the purpose of calculating the period of limitation, because everything depends on the receipt of the application. So the seal has to be affixed and they have to mention the date of receipt of the application. Then the secretary of the board has to scrutinize all applications, questionnaires, and peer review reports received from the reviewers and ensure that the same are complete in all aspects. In case there is any contradiction in the information provided by the practice unit and comments of the reviewer, the same may be pointed out by the office. However, the comment of the reviewer shall be considered as final, because in case if the secretary observes anything against the details of the practice unit and the reviewer has pointed out, and the decision they have to take in between the reviewer, that is the comment passed by the reviewer is considered to be the final. Then to point out defects in such application, questionnaire, and peer review reports through email or by post to the practice unit or to the peer reviewer, requiring him to rectify the same by affording reasonable opportunity. Because here I observed the peer review practice unit has to be given some opportunity to rectify the mistake, and after that the same has to be forwarded to the peer reviewer to rectify his report. And if within the time so granted, defects are rectified, to place the reports before the board or its subcommittee for consideration issuance of peer review certificate. Suppose in case if there is any deficiency, any qualified report is given, then the same thing has to be submitted to the subcommittee, and subcommittee has to go through all the qualified report and they have to submit the final report to the secretary, and secretary in turn he will forward to the peer review board. Then after that, the same is forwarded to the council. The certificate shall be issued when all documents submitted by the peer reviewer as prescribed and as subclass 7 of class 9 are complete in all aspects, and the date of receipt of the report for the purpose of subclass 1 of class 15 shall be the date of receipt of all such completed documents by the office. Then to scrutinize all miscellaneous applications received from the reviewers and the practice unit and take such action as may be prescribed by the board. And the secretary has to send the show cause notice along with the enclosures to the practice unit or the peer reviewer within the reasonable time and to receive the cross objections, if any, on the same. Then to preserve the records of the board for a period of 8 years. It is a duty of the secretary to preserve all the records of the board for a period of 8 years, to receive the application for substitution on account of death or otherwise of the peer reviewer from practice unit during the pendency of peer review and place them before the board. Suppose in case after appointment, if the peer reviewer died, then practice unit has to make an application to the substitution of the peer reviewer. Then the secretary, on receipt of the application, he has to forward the same thing to the board for the substitution. Then to requisition records from the custody of any authority, to grant certified copies of the peer review certificates in accordance with the guidelines. So it's a clear indication that only one original certificate will be issued. In case if the peer reviewer or in practice unit, they want any copies of the peer review certificates, that will be issued as per the guidelines of the ensure. That is as per the guidelines of peer review guidelines of 2022. Then the secretary has to maintain the list of peer-reviewed practice unit. That is already the over. They have to maintain in the register list of peer-reviewed practice unit, list of reviewers who have been empaneled with the board, along with the data passing the test and the data validity of their employment, as well as the number of assignments handled by them. Here, see, for the basic requirement for the empanelment is he has to pass the training, he has to pass the examination, and if he is in employment, up to what period he was in employment, and how many assignments have been given to the peer reviewers. Here, the list of peer reviewers empaneled with the board who have qualified with a special test held for conducting peer review of practice unit, rendering statutory audit of listed companies, along with the data passing test and data validity of their empanelment, as well as the number of assignments handled by. So that's a clear indication. There are two types of tests. One is normal test and one is a special test. That special test, on passing the special test, that peer reviewers are allowed to do the peer review of statutory audit of listed entities. Then list of practice unit along with the name of the reviewers have been referred to the council for initiating any action. That is, in case if there is any decision has to be taken by the council, then it's a duty of the secretary, he has to forward the list. The minutes of the board meeting duly signed by the chairman and peer review board or secretary. Then such are the records as are necessary for the conduct of the official work. It is a duty of the secretary. Now, we are going to chapter 5 about the practice unit. We are going to see the highlights of the practice unit. So the practice unit comes under peer review on 5 bases. First, on own, that is that is mandatory as per the peer review guidelines, one. And sometimes peer review practice unit, they want to do the peer review on their own, that is on voluntary basis. In case of 12 new units, that is if the life of the new unit is less than 12 months, then they have to make an application for the peer review to the secretary of peer review board in form 1. That should contain the application and questionnaire, and that is in form 1, which it contains all the application details and as well as the questionnaire details. Then there is a other two categories are there. Then practice unit also are there, also subject to peer review in 2 category. One is special category and the prescribed category. If the special case and the special category and the prescribed category, then peer review board intimate the practice unit to submit the application questionnaire in form 1. It's a special case. So they have to send a separate message to the practice unit to submit the details in form 1. Then all the practice unit must comply with the provisions of peer review guidelines of 2022. That is our practice unit. They have to follow the peer review guidelines of 2022. Any non-compliance of peer review procedures, peer review guidance, and peer review directions, then shall attract the disciplinary action from the ICA under the Charter Accountants Act of 1949. So the compliance is a must for every practice unit under peer review guidelines of 2022. If it is not followed, then disciplinary action will be attracted as per the provisions of Charter Accountants Act of 1949. Then peer review board is empowered to forward the name of the practice unit to the council to initiate the disciplinary action. But this peer review board, they have to give the reasons why they have referred all the details to the council to take the disciplinary action. So it's a very, very important thing. So if any firm is subject to peer review, they have to follow the entire details that are required, that are to be submitted as per the peer review guidelines of 2022. Then the peer practice unit has to cooperate with the reviewer, that is to produce or allow access to any record, document, or prescribed register, or any other record, document which is in possession of control of the practice unit to a reviewer. Then the practice unit has to give explanation or further details or information as sought by the reviewer as compliance part. Then provide assistance to the reviewer in connection with the peer review. Then provide, suppose in case if the records are not legibly written, and he has to see that all the records are legibly written, and it has to be produced in case if the records have been maintained in the whole regional language, say in Tamil or Malayalam. Then for the purpose of the peer review, it has to be converted into English or Hindi. That is a language which are very comfortable to the peer reviewer. Then he has to do the all translation in Hindi and English. Then practice unit is responsible and accountable for the accuracy and truthfulness of the transaction so provided. So in case if there is any mistake in the translation, then it is the responsibility of the practice unit of that they have not properly translated. This is the obligation of the practice unit. So with this, I am just closing the presentation for chapter 4 and chapter 5 of peer review guidelines of 2022. I'll meet you in another session on chapter 6 and 7 of peer review guidelines. Nandri, Vanakkam.